The word orthodox means true belief, authentic belief, or true worship, authentic worship. The opposite of orthodox is not Catholic. The opposite of orthodox is heterodox, which means a wrong belief or a wrong worship. So Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholics are all Orthodox Christians. Even in the Roman liturgy, in the Roman Eucharistic Prayer number 1, the Roman canon, in the Latin it talks about orthodoxe fides, the Orthodox faith. Now in the English that didn't come across. It said who hold and teach that faith that comes to us from the apostles. The Latin word is the Orthodox faith, the true faith. The word Catholic, and usually they say, oh, it means universal. No, it doesn't mean universal. Catholic comes from two Greek words, katahoron, which means fullness, according to the whole. That if we say the church is Catholic, we mean the church possesses the fullness of the truth, the fullness of the new life of the resurrection, the fullness of the sacraments, the fullness of the gospel. So the opposite of Catholic isn't Orthodox. The opposite of Catholic is heretical, which means we're taking a part of it, not the whole. See? So Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, and Eastern Catholics are all Catholic Christians. It's just unfortunately because of the political divisions, we tend to take one label and then fight about it. But realize the labels are not opposed. The separation between the Catholic churches and the Orthodox churches is really not based on doctrine. It's based on politics. And the politics come from the theological approach being different. And both sides tend to absolutize their approach. And that's led to the political difficulty. See, the dialogue is going on very strong at present to reestablish communion between the Orthodox and Catholic churches. It's closer than it's been in centuries. It's very good. As Eastern Catholics, it's very important that we understand how we define ourselves. The best way to understand who we are Eastern Orthodox Christians who are in communion with the Church of Rome. That makes us Eastern Catholic. But basically we're Eastern Orthodox. We are in communion with the Church of Rome. The Eastern Orthodox churches are not. We believe and do everything that the Eastern Orthodox churches do. But we have that added note of communion with the Roman Church. Now that puts us in an interesting position, and it's a challenge to us ecumenically, to help in the dialogue to reestablish the communion between the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholic churches. It is very important that we who are Eastern Catholic be as Eastern Orthodox as we can be. Because to the extent that we're not, then we're a warning to the Eastern Orthodox churches not to come back into communion. You will lose your identity. So we must be loyal to our communion with Rome as Eastern Catholics, but we must be loyal to our Eastern Orthodox identity. Vatican II told us, go back to your identity, and we owe this to bring about the communion of churches. The following table, the next few pages, shows some of the differences in the theology, the ways of explaining the same realities between East and West. However, a warning to you. This is a gross oversimplification. And keep in mind that the dogma, the reality described, is the same. The explanations, the theologies come from different perspectives, but we're not saying that we're not talking about the same reality. In the Western churches, Roman Catholic and Protestant, when they say theology, basically they're talking about a study that's done by analysis, definition. It's based on some philosophical system. So they would start off with the philosophy system. Under scholasticism, they took Aristotelian philosophy, then fit the Christian mystery into it. In liberation theology, they took Marxist philosophy and tried to fit the Christian experience into that. It's very systematic, it's very linear, it's either this or it's that, and it illuminates the intellect. It is mind-centered. So in the Western approach to theology, the theologian applies his intellect to reveal truths to understand them better. And they have a preference for defining things. But here's a definition. And they have a preference for law and order. But here's the law. They want philosophical clarity. They're not comfortable with poetry. In the Eastern churches, for us, theology is usually done by description. We do not like to define things. We'll sing about it, listen to our liturgy. We sing about things, but we don't define them. And it's based on experience and prayer and celebration. In the East, we say the only reason you should be studying theology is to get you closer to God. It's basically a spiritual practice. It's heart-centered, not head-centered. So the true theologian is somebody who knows God by experience. Your grandmother might be the best theologian you know, because she knows God. And usually in the East, we only call a person a theologian after they're dead. It's safe, they're dead. Because we look at their life. Okay, this is what they taught, but did it make a difference in their life? If it did, then we call them a theologian. If it's academic stuff they're saying that sounds very convincing, okay, but I want to see that it makes a difference in your life. Our theological approach in the East is more symbolic, more paradoxical. It's both this and that. It's not either or. And we have a preference for poetic synthesis rather than philosophical analyses. One of our great theologians is St. Ephrem. You know, during Lent we do that prayer, the St. Ephrem prayer. He was a theologian. And he wrote all his theology in music. You've seen it. Poems. It's wonderful, but it's describing something, not defining it. In the Western approach to Trinity, both East and West agree when you talk about God, you have to say one and three. The West tends to approach with the one. The one. So it's one divine nature subsisting in three persons. God is the fullness of being, and in Roman liturgy, normally prayers start off, O God, talking to the unity. In the East, Trinity is an experience of three hypostases, three persons, who by faith we know share the same essence. But our approach to God is one based more on community, relationships, and communion that we're called to enter. So if you notice in our liturgy, prayers normally are Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, rather than God. When we talk about Christ, both East and West agree that Christ is 100% God, 100% human. In the West, the emphasis falls on the human. Christ is both human and divine, but usually he's approached through his humanity. So they would address Christ, our brother. And we are to follow Christ. On the East side, we agree Christ is both God and man, but we usually approach Christ through his divinity. Notice in our prayers, Christ our true God. You will not hear that in Western liturgy. It's not that they deny he's God. They do believe it. But just the approach is different. And for us in the East, you're not to follow Christ. You're to become Christ. Even the word Christian, it's a Greek word, Christianos. And in classes, I love to get people on this. But, okay, what does Christianos, what does Christian mean? It all means a follower of Christ. No, it doesn't. In Greek, it means a little Christ. A little Christ. So our Eastern approach in your spirituality, you are to become what Jesus is by nature, you are to become by grace. So you're not following him, you're putting him on.